Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to Friday Night Mike. And wow, what a busy week we've had since the last time I came on, last Friday night. I mean, last weekend, I thought everything, there was a lot of momentum last Friday night. We were talking about all the different opponents that the different SEC teams had picked up and who had the advantage, who had the disadvantage, who was going to be upset about that. And that seemed like, I don't know, I guess that seemed like the biggest thing that was going on. And then all the reports over the weekend, and before you knew it, by the end of the weekend, we thought that college football wasn't going to happen. We'd had all these leaks about the Big Ten and the Pac-12, and, I don't know about you, but I woke up Monday really bummed out, just like, man, is this going to be this big domino effect? And the Big Ten was saying they were going to cancel. There was those reports out of Detroit on the Gannett Network, and before you knew it, I think we were all holding our breath. I know the college athletes were. It just goes to show you how fragile it is and how fast things can change. So before I get started tonight, I'm going to go ahead and do my shares as I always do. I'd ask you to look. Wow, look at that! Looks like a lot of you have already shared 9 shares already. Really appreciate that. Makes a difference for us as we kind of circulate the program around and let different people have a look and see what we're doing and what we're talking about. I think everybody likes to talk SEC football, whether they're in the SEC or not. It is kind of the predominant conference out there. So, but I'm excited about tonight's show. A lot to talk about, a lot going on. Obviously, I saw that Alabama. I don't know if y'all saw this. Alabama brought Michael Jordan in via video to speak to their team. You're just like, wow. You talk about somebody that pulls out all the stops. And Nick Saban. This is what you're up against, right? You're up against Nick Saban. Let's see here. Talking college football from the South, exclamation point, post. All right, so there's my share. I'll do one more here. We'll get into the heavy stuff. You guys can weigh in. I love the way you guys have your own conversations in the messages here. It's funny, I always go back through the messages and I'll say, I was having one conversation and these folks were kind of having another. And I kind of get a kick out of that. So that's fun. That's why we're here. We're here to talk college football. And I hope you guys had a great week. I hope that, if you're an SEC fan, an ACC fan, a Big 12 fan, a college football fan, our sport is still alive. I don't think I need to have these AirPods on anymore. Our sport's still alive. It's not done. The next step will be the contact practices in the SEC. That means, next Monday, they begin their practices, and then the 5th practice that they have can be the full contact and full pads. So, that's the next step, and you've got to look at this as an incremental process, right? Greg Sankey said it best, building the bridge as you cross the river. And it's almost like you're trying to avoid these landmines. You're trying to avoid these pitfalls that other conferences weren't able to avoid. Now, I called a source tonight from one of the 3 conferences that's still playing football, and I said, hey, I want to know, how realistic is this? Is everybody just holding on? Because a few weeks ago, Greg Sankey said it's like running out a ground ball, and I said, boy, that doesn't sound real positive to me. How about running underneath a fly ball, right? Give me a little more positive metaphor. So I called a guy I've known a long time, I really trust, and I said, look, how realistic is it? And he said, well, we're optimistic. We feel good about it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it because the more they talk about feeling good about it, there's another segment of the society out there that wants to attack it and take it down. It's that whole cancel culture thing that we talk about. And there's just some people out there. I mean, listen, one of my friends and favorite writers, he referred to the conference as still playing as the stubborn 6. And come on, man. That's not objective. That's painting a picture. You're getting into the political stuff that we see with those different networks, the way they cover politics, where you can kind of turn on the channel and tell which presidential candidate they like before you hear a word they say. We don't need to be that way in sports, right? Sports is our escape from that. Sports is where we can all unite. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your political party is. It doesn't matter what your income, your socioeconomic status. your age, your sex. It doesn't matter. When we watch sports, that's where we unite. I mean, that's our great escape. Now, you could say some people go to the movies, although doggone, those movie stars seem like they want to talk politics left and right, even though they don't even know who they are half the time. I mean, think about it. If you're a movie star and you spend half your time in character, at the end of the day, do you even know who you are? I had one of my former bosses, John Adams in Knoxville, used to say, those movie stars are some of the most screwed up people you'll ever meet. They don't even know who they are. And I think, you know, he's kind of right. Wouldn't that be hard if you're in character all the time? I mean, just taking a little poke at the entertainment industry there. But sports, it's the great unifier. It's where we all rally, right? And I think that's what's made it hard to see the political statements made in sports. And I don't want to weigh too heavily into that. I'll just say this. We tune into sports for the sports entertainment and to be entertained. And there's a debate whether or not the athletes have a right to express their political points of view on the field. I can see the case for it. We're a country of freedom. I can see the case against it, that we really don't want to be dealing with politics when we turn on a sports channel. You know, that's going to be up to the athletes, though. You know, they've got to understand when you make a decision, you're probably going to lose some customers one way or the other. And if you're fine with that, you're fine with that. But there's going to be some people that aren't going to buy your brand if they don't agree with your political affiliation. That's just the way it is. And that's why, like, I remember growing up, I don't know if Pete Rose was a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, do any of you know who, when you were, if you're my age group, I mean, did you know what political affiliation your favorite player was? I never knew. I had no idea. I didn't care. Pete Rose, I don't care what he is. John Elway, Republican, Democrat, I don't know. What is he? You know, Tony Dorsett, Adrian Peterson, I don't know how he votes. So, but maybe things have changed, right? So I even joked that now in the recruiting cycle, right, they're going to have height, weight, political party. You know, no, I'm just kidding. You got to have some fun with this. We're evolving, folks. We're at a part of our society where we are evolving. Social media has provided a window into, I don't want to say our souls, because some people use fake names, but into our psyche, right? I remember growing up and used to think, man, what if you could read other people's minds? What if you knew what they were saying? How cool would that be? Well, as it turns out, not real cool, okay? Because sometimes what's on people's minds, I could have done without really knowing it. Better that we didn't know. But, you know, now thanks to Twitter and the fake screen names, anybody can put whatever they want out there with zero accountability. I got a problem with that. I just went on a political rant. I didn't even plan to do that. So that's over with. Let me talk sports. So again, if you missed the beginning when I was talking about what Alabama did, just one more example with Michael Jordan talking, just one more example of Nick Saban and Alabama pulling out all the stops. And I covered Georgia now, and I've covered Tennessee, and I've covered Auburn, and I covered Alabama in the 90s, and I covered Michigan State. And I try to get this across to these programs. I say, you need to understand what you're up against here. You need to understand that in going up against Nick Saban and Alabama, if you want the big prize, you better go all out. Because let me tell you, this guy doesn't take a day off from training, right? Saban is going to take you all 16 rounds. Now, Dabo Swinney and Clemson, they figured that out. And they even, you know, they got a little magic with that football. They got ahead of the plane. But you know who's there at Clemson? Former Alabama guys, right? You talk about Dabo Swinney and Woody McCorvey. I mean, guys that came from Alabama. That's old Alabama. That's new Clemson, right? And they kind of know, right? They get it. So that you got to, you know, now Kirby's at Georgia. He understands, right? We see LSU, Ed Orgeron. He gets it now. You know, programs are figuring it out. If you really want the big prize, you better go all out. You better not take a day off. You can't afford the luxuries. Because I'm going to tell you, Saban is ferocious. And I have developed a respect for Nick Saban in coaching like I had for Michael Jordan in basketball. You want to talk about the ultimate competitor? I'm going to say it's Nick Saban at Alabama. And it doesn't matter who his assistant coaches are. The guy just puts it out and puts the standard out there. And you got to give Nick Saban credit. You got to. Whether you hate him or not, you got to give him credit. I'm going to tell you another guy that I said that about in the 1990s. And again, probably not going to win any most popular awards, but Steve Spurrier, smartest guy in the room, found a way to get it done at Florida. Did something, best career advice I ever got from Steve Spurrier in 1994. I was doing a story. I call up Spurrier. I say, Coach Spurrier, this is going to sound like a really dumb question. I want to know what makes you so great. What do you do that makes you so much better than the other coaches, in your opinion? And he said, well, and he said his dad was a preacher. He's from Johnson City, Tennessee. He said his daddy told him a long time ago, there's two ways you can be successful in life. He said you do it like everybody else and work a little harder at it and work a little longer at it, or you could do things different. He said, I choose to do things different. And I mean, I was mind blown, right? Wow. That's genius. He's right. You do things now. Easier said than done, because there's a reason why other people aren't doing it different, right? There's a reason why the mainstream norm is doing it a certain way. But can you be that innovator that finds a different way that's better, or that improves what the norm is doing? Can you work smarter, not harder, as Steve Spurrier did? So when I think about Nick Saban and I think about Steve Spurrier, I think about innovators. And I think about coaches that did it a little different. Dabo Swinney. It's time to give Dabo Swinney credit for this. You know, this is an SEC show. We're talking SEC. But Dabo's an SEC guy. I was there when Dabo Swinney was an assistant coach on Gene Stallings' staff. Okay, Jeremy Pruitt was in charge of the scout team defense as a player. Will Friend, the Tennessee line coach, was on that Alabama team I covered. Former Cleveland Browns head coach Freddie Kitchens was the quarterback. All these guys, they were there. You want to talk about the bedrock of Clemson football right now and all the great coaches that came off that Gene Stallings staff, right? So that's old Alabama that's done pretty good. And then you got Saban, right? And now you're seeing Kirby Smart try and do it. And now we're going to see if LSU, and then we're going to find out if Jimbo Fisher, with all those resources at A&M, and then there's just Auburn that always just seems to keep their claws in it. And now you got Tennessee with those resources and Fulmer in charge. I'll tell you what, man. The SEC right now, it's a potent mix. It's a lot of fun. And, Kentucky built themselves up to this level of respectability. Kentucky's in the conversation. Yes, they are. Yes. Florida, Dan Mullen, can they get that edge back? I don't see it yet. But those Gator fans, they still got the swag and the confidence. You can't tell them that. Never mind the results. Them Gator fans are going to Gator. A lot of swag there. You know, getting back to COVID-19 and moving forward, you hear so many people say, well, you can't do it without a bubble, right? You can't do it without a bubble. Greg Sankey made a mention of a quasi-bubble in the SEC. And what Greg was talking about was the amount of time that the student athletes spend around other players that have been tested in the football facility that's on lockdown, around other people that have been tested a great majority of their time. Anybody that's familiar with how much these football players put into it knows they don't have a lot of free time. There really isn't. Yeah, they'll go to class. They'll have to socially distance. They'll have some social life. They'll have to be careful. But most of their time, 95% of their time, they're pretty much sequestered from everybody anyway. I liked what Miami coach Manny Diaz said. I'm rooting for this guy, by the way. I'm wanting to see the Canes get back, right? I mean, I think everybody liked it when Miami was good. It would certainly make the ACC more interesting if Miami and Virginia Tech were to get some of that bite back. We see North Carolina and Mac Brown. What an incredible job Mac Brown's done in North Carolina. But here's what Manny Diaz said about how college programs can create their own bubble. Quote, there are people you've allowed to get within 6 feet of you, whether that's at work at ESPN or when you go home or when you go to the grocery store. We all have that bubble. And that bubble is who we allow in close contact us without a mask. Absolutely. That's our bubble. Our bubble is who we socially distance from and who we allow in our bubble. We all have a bubble. Don't feel so helpless, right? Don't make it sound like this is a situation that's so helpless. We all have our bubble. Diaz is right. I like that attitude. I like that approach. The 2 keys for college football moving forward, according to that source I talked to. Number 1, some uniform testing. Now, the SEC has theirs. The ACC has theirs. The Big 12 has theirs among the Power 5. Those need to unify, okay? They need to get uniform. And bring Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the American Athletic Conference in with you, right? Everybody share your information. So that's one. Everybody put your arms around the challenge. That's step one to make this happen. And then two is just how well the athletes manage that bubble that Manny Diaz is talking about. When all the students come back, and it's happening right now across all the campuses, all the students are coming back, and how well are the student athletes going to distance themselves and manage themselves with everybody coming back on. We're going to find out in 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to see the numbers. Those numbers could decide whether or not there's a college football season. I'll point this out. The numbers that we won't see are the numbers from the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And to me, that's where I have a problem with the rationale of them canceling their seasons. How can they, in good conscience, in good faith, allow students back on their campus and not allow the student athletes to play their sports? Everybody is there for a reason. Young people are on that campus for opportunity, right? Because of their ambition to chase their dreams. And you're going to tell the students that it's okay for you to go to class because you want to be a doctor or a pharmacist or a lawyer or an accountant or a sports writer, no, or a television person, right? Or a veterinarian. You can follow those dreams on our campus. We're not even going to test you. But you student athletes, you guys over here that have been getting tested 3 times a week, you guys that are working out, yeah, we're not going to let you follow your dreams. We're shutting you down. Oh, but over here, academia world, sure, you can do it. In fact, over there at Michigan, you guys can do your intramural programs. Oh, and at Wisconsin, we're going to keep practicing football. Yeah, you can't play on Saturday, but you're going to keep practicing football. You know why? Because you want to keep them engaged, right? I mean, I don't understand the rationale of that. I read something else tonight. I believe it was a CDC report. It said that 1 out of every 4 kids, I'm going to call them kids, 18 to 24, has considered suicide at least once amid this COVID-19 pandemic. We talk about unintended consequences. Think about that. 1 out of every 4 has considered it. If 1 out of every 100 actually did it, 1 out of 1,000, 1 out of 10,000, if 1 out of 100,000 that considered it committed suicide, it would be a higher death rate than COVID-19. Unintended consequences. Nobody's talking about them. You know why? Because they have an agenda. And when people have an agenda, they don't tell you the complete truth. You know, to me, I learned a long time ago when as a sports writer, I have to write all sorts of different kinds of pieces. You write features and profiles and news stories. And when you write columns, you have to be willing to present the other side of the argument and defeat the other side of the argument to get your point across. And I believe there should be a college football season because I believe that the student athletes, number one, have a right to pursue their dreams. They're more than 18 years old. They're adults. And number two, they signed that scholarship paper and that university pledged to give them that opportunity. And therefore, those schools have a responsibility to do all they can to give them that opportunity safely. And I think they've done that. The people that don't want there to be a college football season just say, well, they're in close contact, but they don't talk about the unintended consequences. And they also don't talk about the fact that if there's not a football season, those same football student athletes are still at risk. In fact, they're more at risk because remember we talked earlier about the amount of time that they spent around other people that were tested. Well, guess what? Now they're not spending all that time around other people that were tested. Now they're spending time around more people that weren't tested in a less controlled environment. I mean, I'm not a genius, all right? This is not complicated. This is really not that complicated. I have a hard time understanding how these academians have outthought themselves. I don't even think that's what happened. I've always felt there's a certain animosity from the academia world towards sports. I have to excuse me, it's still a little warm out here. Got to get my water in. So University of South Alabama, down there in Mobile, Alabama, they had a scrimmage on Thursday, pads and all. Not sure if I saw too much coverage of that, I would think people would want to cover it, but maybe they don't want you to see it happen. Maybe they don't want you to know that it's happening and that, so far so good down there in Mobile. Some new playoff odds for you. I saw these moved a little bit earlier. Before the Big Ten and the Pac-12 dropped out, Clemson had a 91% chance of making the playoff. Now it's 93%. Alabama went from 57 to 76%. Georgia from 26 to 47%, pretty big uptick for Georgia. LSU 23 to 42%. Obviously, it increases the chances that a second SEC team gets in if there's no Ohio State or no Oregon. I think those are the two programs that were most likely from those conferences. Oklahoma doubled their chances, 16 to 33%, and Texas 13 to 28%. So a couple weeks ago, we had Bill Hancock on my Monday night show. I don't know if you catch my On the Beat show on Dog Nation. And Bill Hancock, the executive director of the playoff, told us that they were planning on moving forward with the playoffs until otherwise known. I guess Gary Barta from Iowa, he's kind of the rotational figurehead this year, heading it up. I guess he made a comment and said yes, that's still the plan. To me, that's kind of a non-news story. It's like, well, everything's still like it's supposed to be. So that's not news. Like it's news if like something changes. But if you go, oh wow, look at this, the college football playoff. Let's stop acting surprised. People are doing their jobs, right? Saw that Dabo Swinney obviously says, hey, four best teams are going to play. Clemson's been one of those 4 best 5 years in a row. So how much do you miss the Big Ten and the Pac-12? Well, I guess 18 out of the previous 24 playoff teams came from the conferences that are still playing. Ohio State had made it 3 times, Michigan State once, Washington once, Oregon once. And then Spurrier, the guy I talked about a little bit earlier, he said that the SEC and ACC ought to just play off because one of those teams is going to win it anyway. So, kind of funny. Heck, even the President of the United States getting involved in this, right? Donald Trump tweeting out that there needs to be college football, calling Trevor Lawrence on the phone. Isn't this great? Everybody getting involved. And then you hear the recent news, right? So you knew this was coming. So I started the show talking about how a week ago we were talking about all the different teams that got scheduled, and oh boy, didn't it look like they took care of Alabama and Florida, right? So apparently 5 of the ADs on the AD call, it got contentious. So I looked at the schedule to see who I thought it might be. I'm going to say Philip Fulmer was one of them. I thought Tennessee got a terrible draw. I'm going to say Mitch Barnhart from Kentucky was another. He's the dean of ADs. South Carolina didn't get a very good draw. Neither did Texas A&M or Arkansas. But, isn't it good to see these SEC programs, these ultra-competitive guys, sorting this thing out? I think that's pretty fascinating. Pretty fascinating stuff there. So, Purdue coach Jeff Brom, once rumored as a Tennessee candidate, put out a plan for spring football. I don't know how many of you saw that. But under his plan, there would be 8 games in the spring and 10 games in the fall. Man, that seems like a lot of games. 18 games between February 27th and December 11th. 18 games over 9 months. Well, right now we're playing what? 15 games from September, October, November, December, January. Right now you're paying 15 games in 5 months, so you're talking about 18 games over 10 months. I think it's still a lot of mileage. Interesting concept. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know that COVID-19 will be any different by the spring. I mean, if a vaccine pops up between now and then, that'd be wonderful. Everybody wants to save the world, and I think we would all jump up and down and praise God or whomever, whatever you pray to, whoever you give thanks to. I think we would do that. I just don't think it's going to sail. I don't like it. I saw Greg McElroy. Greg McElroy's talking about the 18 to 22 games in a 10-month span. He felt like that was hypocritical. If you're going to talk about the health of the players, how can you ask the players to play that many games? My thought is what you may see is these teams like play Saturday scrimmages against each other and televise them. I don't know. That's just my idea. It's not a bowl season. It's just kind of like, I don't know, what do they call those in soccer? Friendlies? Is that right? Maybe some friendlies in the spring. You could televise them. You could put fans in the stand. Maybe you could put fans in the stands if we're that far along. Thought that was pretty interesting. You know, they're really, it would change the whole concept of spring football. What we think of as spring football, right? 8 of the 14 SEC programs didn't have any spring football. Nobody stopped to thought about it. So who did? Who got those valuable, when you know, everybody's going to start next Monday, right? Everybody's going to start there August 17th. But who's a little bit ahead? Kentucky had 5 practices. South Carolina had 5. Vandy had 4. LSU had 3, Missouri had 3, Tennessee had 2. Do we think that makes a difference? Probably not. You know, not when you consider that the coaches have had the guys back on campus since June 8th. They've had the walk-through practices. They've been able to use a ball for an hour a day of those practices that they've been supervised in for about 2 weeks of the second half of July. I think coaches kind of have an idea, but really, until the pads go on and the scrimmaging starts, you're really not going to know what it's all about. You know, that's really when these coaches kind of figure it out. That's when everybody kind of separates, if you will. A large portion of the audience here, Georgia fans, so appreciate everybody's watching. Georgia had a very busy news day today, and if you believe that Georgia is an SEC championship contender, then this will probably interest you. JT Daniels, their transfer quarterback from Southern Cal, got cleared for contact yesterday, actually, but it was reported today. JT's the guy who came from Southern Cal. He had a torn ACL in the first half of the first game last year against Fresno State. He was off to a rip-roaring start under that new offense, and he injured the knee, and Keaton Slovis took the job, and that's why he transferred to Georgia. Really likes Todd Monken's system. It's an air raid system. So this is going to be worth keeping an eye on. To me, it's not a quarterback competition at Georgia as much as it's a quarterback process, because you're trying to learn a brand new offense, and you got a lot of new kids. You got not a brand new offensive line. You got 5 guys that have started, but you've only got 2 or 3 guys that have been in positions they had been in before. A lot of newness there, a lot of newness in the receiving core, new backfield. Going to take time to learn the playbook. Going to have to keep things simple. I think it'll be a while before JT Daniels is under center running a conventional air raid type of offense. Jamie Newman, of course, an RPO star, 6'4", 230. Jamie, news there, came out today. He'd been working on a foot injury. He's had to be rehab a foot, so apparently he just came out of this boot. So let's keep an eye on Jamie Newman's foot. Will he be healthy, right? JT Daniels just getting back from injury. How healthy will he be with the knee? Dwan Mathis cleared from the brain surgery in May. Players are raving about the 6'6", 215-pound former Ohio State commit, right? And then Carson Beck, Mr. Florida, right? Best quarterback in the state of Florida, and he went through spring drills. So that Georgia quarterback competition, or that situation, process, bears watching. Also, Georgia getting back probably their number 2 receiver, Dominic Blaylock. Monday, many of you might remember, suffered a torn ACL in the first quarter of the SEC championship game against LSU. He's back. That is very big for the Georgia receiving corps. Some bad news today. Georgia 5-star Keely Ringo, number 4 overall recruit in the country, number 1 quarterback in the incoming cornerback, will have shoulder surgery, probably going to be out for the year. If you're Georgia, you're glad you've got 3 guys with starting experience at corner, and Mark Webb and Tyreek Stevenson probably ahead of him anyway at the star. But that Georgia secondary depth is starting to get tested now. Remember, Devod Wilson transferred out to Central Florida. So Georgia has taken some hits via the transfer market. I want to take a look at some of your comments, give you a chance to weigh in if you've got some thoughts for me here tonight. What do you got for me, folks? I love coming on here and talking football with you. It's a hot Friday night here in Athens. I call it Athens hot. I don't understand where the humidity comes from. There's no water around here. Don't understand. Look at this. Dwan Mathis' dad is in the room tonight. Terrence. You want to talk about somebody that's thankful that their son is healed and playing football. And we actually had a chance to visit with Terrence Mathis earlier. And, he expressed that he's confident in the way Georgia's taking care of his son. I don't think people realize that where the parents are at with this. The parents would rather their sons stay in the football program where they have access to that testing every week, where they have access 24/7 to the medical treatment. They want their son, to the extent that when there's breaks, 4th of July, this last week, the kids stay here. The parents say, no, you stay there. We don't want to risk you getting infected, or you stay there, and the kids stay there. The kids are fighting for, and that's where I just lose it, because I go, why don't they have a voice? And listen, if you don't want to play, you opt out and you save your year of eligibility. So why doesn't that work? It does work. But as we know, it's a political football. It is a political football. It is what it is. Sometimes you got to call out the elephant in the room. And that's what it is. And yes, it's a liability issue because our judicial system hasn't solved that puzzle yet. But why hasn't it? Because politicians are trying to gum it up so that it can't get solved yet. It's just, look, we can do this, folks. We can work through this. We have to take a personal accountability, responsibility. The politicians have to take responsibility, accountability. They're there to serve the public wants and needs, and that's why we have our voice, right? And to me, I think football is worth fighting for. And you saw that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and the players had their movement. They made their voice heard. I believe that was a pivotal point. I believe that's kind of what gave the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, that's what gave them the juice to move forward. The players rose up and had a voice. And I can tell you the parents want their kids to be in the program. And I understand why. I totally get it. Because if they're not in the program, where are they? They're still out there. And nobody talks about that. The anti-football people go, well, if there's football, they can get COVID. Okay, finish the sentence. And if there's not football, they can get COVID. Finish the doggone sentence. Stop telling us half of a story. And you should be enraged as I am. You should be yelling at your TV set when they go on there and say things like that, and they're not telling you the other half. That when there's not football, there's still going to be problems. And as I talked about earlier, that suicide rate, 1 out of 4, 18 to 24-year-olds have considered suicide during this pandemic. Unintended consequence. Nobody's talking about it. You know why? Because it hurts their argument. It hurts their agenda. So they simply don't tell you. And you got to take it upon yourself to find this information. It's what we all have to do. It's every man for himself. Gone are the days of one television station. And listen, I'm going to brag now. I'm going to brag for a minute. I work for Cox Enterprises. You go to the AJC.com, you go to our newspaper's website, and they cover both sides. It's all there. You want to see the numbers? I mean, I work for a remarkable organization, and I've been fortunate to work for many, and right now I could not be happier and in a better place and working for better employers. I'll tell you one more. When this whole thing started, I was in Nashville to cover the SEC basketball tournament. And I covered the first night, and Georgia beat Ole Miss. Tom Crean finally looked like he might be turning a corner. And on the way to the arena to that game, though, I got an email. They said, listen, the company says if you aren't comfortable going in, and this is before we knew all this about COVID. This is at the very beginning. This is March 11th. The company says if you're not comfortable going there, don't worry about it. Don't cover it. Now, mind you, they had paid for me to get up there. They had paid for my hotel. They had paid for my travel. They had paid all my expenses. And they said, look, if you don't feel comfortable, don't go in there. You don't. How many companies do that, right? You know how I felt? You know how much gratitude I felt for my company when that happened? And I did go in there. And everybody has to make a call for themselves. But they let me make that call for myself. I made that call for myself because this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is my lifestyle. I've committed my career to this. I've made life decisions, family decisions, moved from one state to another, one house, one apartment, to get to this juncture in my career. And this is what I'm about. And if I'm going out, I'm going to go out doing my job, right? That was my mentality. And maybe I probably got a little bit of that crazy soldiering. You might say, Mike, I think you might have hit your head too many times parachuting. And maybe I did. But I get real mission oriented about things that I'm passionate about. I think you all know that watch this show. When I get dialed in, when I get zeroed in on a mission or zeroed in on a mission statement, I get pretty relentless. I get pretty focused. I get pretty driven. I get pretty inspired. I get pretty motivated to deliver on it. And I was going to deliver on my job because these people hired me and believed in me. And that's why I went. And that's why I'll go again. They believe in me. I believe in them. I'm going to serve them. I'm going to be precautious. I'm going to be cautious now. I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to distance. I'm going to wash my hands. I'm going to be careful who I approach. I'm going to be smart about it, but I'm going to pursue it. And every day, all of you watching have to make those decisions for yourself, for your family, for your children. And you should pat yourself on the back at the end of the day and know that you're doing what's best for you. You have that autonomy in life to make those decisions. Listen, it sucks. It's not easy. It's hard. Nobody likes it. But this is the hand that we're dealt right now. And all we can do is play it as good as we can. And you do that and you feel good about yourself. You make those decisions. And the right decision isn't the same for everyone. If somebody's 70, my parents in Arizona, over 70, health-wise compromised, no, they probably shouldn't go on any more cruises, okay? They probably shouldn't be going to the grocery store. Their decisions are going to be different than my 26-year-old daughter who's an assistant manager and works at a grocery store on the front line every day. She has a different decision. She's still in college. She's still pursuing her goals. She's still moving forward. She's in a different risk group than the 73-year-old, right? Than the 28-year-old daughter that I have with type 1 diabetes, who's in a different risk group than I'm in, as an over 50-year-old sports writer who tries really hard to stay in shape, but obviously not too good a shape because I'm drinking about 32 ounces of water talking to you for 45 minutes. Maybe I'm just being responsible hydrating. And don't think for a minute that I'm going to sit here and pass out in front of you. I know you're all waiting for that moment. What if he get dehydrated right in front of us? That happened to me once. It wasn't fun. It wasn't cool. What do we got? We're talking. I had my little stream of consciousness there. I didn't know I had it in me. But you folks do it. I read these comments. And, it gets me fired up. And I have a lot of fun. John Adams talks about me knocking. I was on a cover 4. We had a really fun show last night. We had something called Cover 4 at Dog Nation. There's 4 of us. Brandon Adams does a show every day at 10 a.m. every weekday called Dog Nation Daily. He hosts it. Connor Riley does a Tuesday night show, Connor and Coverage. And Jeff Santel does a recruiting show on Wednesday called Before the Hedges. And the 4 of us have like our own Around the Horn style show. And it got pretty contentious. I got pretty fired up because one of my coworkers said that the championship this year would be hollow. And I hate to use the word triggered because I think triggered is kind of a millennium word. And I kind of think, the I'm offended crowd, I've got kids that are millennials, so let me just say that. But the I'm offended crowd, I'm just like, look at the I'm offended crowd. I got triggered. I got triggered when one of my coworkers said that this year's championship would be hollow without Ohio State. I went off. I pointed out that the SEC is 10-2 against Ohio State in bowl game. He said, "Well, they beat Alabama in the playoff. Well, it was 5 years ago. Come on, every blind squirrel finds a nut." Is that the saying? What did Darrell Waltrip used to say at the NASCAR track? If you run with the squirrels, you get your nuts cracked. That's what he said. I don't know, NASCAR analogy, where that's coming from. Always enjoyed NASCAR coverage. We need some NASCAR. You know what? We need the Intimidator. What would Dale Earnhardt say? Not Little E. What would the Intimidator say right now? You know what the Intimidator would say. I know half of you watch NASCAR and know about that 3-car and know what Dale Earnhardt would say right now. He'd be kicking everybody's you-know-what. We need some Intimidator, right? That's why I liked seeing Spurrier come out and say something. That was a blast to say. Now, wait a minute. I see somebody poking fun. I was the one that got triggered. I was the one that acted like the millennial. I was the one that got triggered and pouted and got angry and went on and on and on and on about how this wouldn't be a hollow season. That was me. So I want to be clear on that. I was the one that lost my poise and my cool and got angry. I was angry, folks. And the people that were watching saw it, and everybody's having fun because the power went out in my house. All of a sudden my square just went dark. And everybody's like, "Where'd Mike go?" And I'm struggling. I'm like, "Oh gosh, I got to get back on the internet here, really fast. Or people are going to wonder if I just quit or something." Paul Duncan. Earnhardt would be going off. Earnhardt would be making a mockery. Listen, and I'm not saying that that's the way to handle it. I don't want anybody to be ridiculed. I don't want anybody to be called soft. All I want people to do is present both sides of the argument and find those academians and say, listen, if you're going to let students on campus, if you're going to let those math majors, if you're going to let those doctoral students, those future lawyers, those pharmacists, those veterinarians, if you're going to let those kids pursue their dreams, then you've got an obligation to let those athletes pursue their dreams. Because they're doing a heck of a lot more to avoid this COVID-19 than the regular student. How dare you take that opportunity away from that young man or that young woman after they've trained and worked their entire life and believed in your system, believed in your university, that you would give them what they needed to achieve their goals, and you're taking it away because of what? Politics? I can't think of any other. Isn't there liability for the regular student? Listen, how dare you to take that away, to take those rights away from those student athletes? Shame on you. I haven't heard a reason yet. I'm not saying that COVID-19 is not dangerous. It is. Whether you're in the myocardial bandwagon, permanent damage, that is not the argument. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, there can be lasting effects. But taking football away does not take that disease away. It doesn't. It takes kids out of a program that tests them for it and screens them for it and encourages them to stay further away from it, is what it does. It puts them more at risk for COVID-19. You got that? College athletes, if they're not playing their sport, if they're not in that building 40, 60 hours a week, they're going to be more at risk for COVID-19 than they are if they're in the program. So don't tell me you're trying to protect them, because that ain't what's happening, okay? I want you all to make that argument. Don't let people push you around. You stand up for what you believe in, and you make them tell you both sides of it. When someone says they're the stubborn six, no, they're not. They're not the stubborn six conferences. That's not what's happening. They're being responsible. All we're talking about right now is the next practice. All we're talking about is padded practice. We're not to September 26th yet, right? We've still got hurdles to clear. We've still got to see if these student athletes can manage themselves when the student body comes back. We still have to see what happens with the padded practices if the numbers go up. There's still things we've got to learn. There's still time to collect more data. And that's what these conferences are doing. Don't pretend like they're moving ahead recklessly, okay? Because they're not. They're being responsible. You got some smart people down here. Don't be stereotyping, right? I got a better phone connection than you do, right? I'm just saying. I know how people stereotype. It's wrong. It ticks me off. And I'm not afraid to put people in their place. Because I've lived in enough different places that I can tell you, right? The South is, to me, I love living in the South. I choose to live in the South. I enjoy it down here. I enjoy the culture. I enjoy the people. I like that sports is a big part of our culture. There's nothing wrong with the fact that we rally and gather and enjoy one another at sporting events. That is a healthy thing to do. Tailgating is a good thing. Where else are you going to get to know your neighbors? I mean, think about it. There's a bigger sense of community in the South via college football than anywhere. And I'm proud of that. And I'm proud that I've been a college football writer. This is what I do. I've enjoyed college basketball. I've enjoyed covering Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, now Georgia, Michigan State. Man, I have had all sorts of different flavors. And it is incredible. It is great. College sports are a great thing. Culturally, athletically, spiritually, I'm all in, folks. I'm all in. Great sense of community. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me here tonight. I'm going to cut it a little short. I had a lot of things to say. I wanted to catch us up on the week. I think we covered a lot of ground. If you've got any other questions, you can follow me on Twitter at MikeGriffith32. You can put your comments here at the bottom. I'm going to put this on YouTube tomorrow night around 8, and then I'm going to go in the room and I'm going to comment with the people that are watching. So I'll be commenting directly while the show's going on, something that I do a little bit different. If you missed the first part of the show, obviously you can watch this, or you can check it out tomorrow night on YouTube. Some news there. I saw someone mention Tennessee banning tailgating. I think you're going to see that happen on a lot of campuses right now. That is a different university issue. Right now, the battle that's being fought is about the student athletes playing. You know, the crowd stuff, the social stuff, that is yet to come. That's yet to come. So thank you for the compliments. Thanks for being a great audience, man. I love doing the show. SEC football rocks. Like I said, it's what I've done. It's who I am. I enjoy it. Make no apologies for it. And if I've ever offended you or your team, I'm sorry. But my thing is, I kind of just say what's on my mind, and I try to tell the truth and try to be as honest as I can. So, and I'm wrong sometimes. So just so you know, if you were offended tonight or you disagree with me, that's cool. Everybody has a different perspective. I respect that. But my job is to share, you know, what I've learned from the different places that I've been on this program. So listen, everybody, be safe. Be measured in your risks. You know, hey, feel good about yourself. We're moving forward as a society. Have a great weekend. Thanks.